Can I admit something slightly embarrassing? I actually started reading about finance books when I was a teenager.
Why is that embarrassing?
It somehow made me feel like I was money obsessed or greedy, and no one really talked about money. Schools don't teach it, parents don't talk about it. You're just expected to do it yourself. And if you're lucky, you get it right the first time, and most of us just learn the hard way.
So these books that we've been discussing, they've basically done what school never did, I guess, for you.
Yeah. And there are 5 books, I think, which are really, really good and informative, and something that I really want our kids to read about one day.
Yeah, I wish someone made me read books when I was a kid, because when I was young, I didn't even read like fiction books, never mind educational ones. So we're going to be talking about your 5 favorite finance books today.
Yeah.
Where do we start?
Well, I think the first one I would say is the Bogleheads Guide to Investing.
That is the founder of Vanguard, correct?
Yes, John C. Bogle. I think they also call him Jack Bogle.
I thought Jack was his brother.
I don't think so. I think that's just his nickname.
Okay.
Yeah. Everyone's out there looking for the next big stock, analyzing loads of different companies, checking out their PE ratios, and just trying to figure out which is the next stock that's going to go to the moon. Is that the word for it?
Yeah. Yeah, to the moon. So how's this book different? What does this book recommend?
Essentially, that the best and most efficient strategy for investing for most average investors, you and me, would be to invest in simple, low-cost index funds.
Yep, which is exactly what we do now and what we talk about all the time on Instagram. But yeah, I totally agree. But it almost sounds too straightforward as well.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a big part of why people overlook it, because it's just a simple strategy. You stick to it. And actually, there's a lot of evidence that these index funds outperform a lot of actively managed funds.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems as well currently is there's just so much, I wouldn't say misinformation, but there's so much information on Instagram, people saying the same things in different ways, and you hear the term ETF, you hear about these things and you just think, but really, is it really, or are they just like using that to make content? But it's actually true, isn't it? But so many people just dismiss it and don't even take it seriously.
Yeah, because honestly, I think the bottom line is that investing doesn't have to be complicated.
Definitely.
And this book pretty much summarizes that.
I like this.
I don't mean to offend you, but your breath is just not the best, and it's making me like...
Well, that is very offensive.
Could you do something about it?
I actually didn't shower yesterday, and Evey picked up on it today. She was like, "Did you shower yesterday? You smell greasy."
Oh, God.
At least I didn't smell like BO.
But still, oils are not a great smell.
She showers every single day, if not once a day, twice a day, like doesn't miss it. I suggested going camping recently, getting a roof tent to go on the car and go camping. She's like, "How can we do that?" I'm like, "What do you mean? It would be amazing." She's like, "How am I going to shower?" So I said I'd get a carrier bag, fill it with water and put a few holes in it and hold it above her head for her.
As long as it's warm, I don't mind.
No promises there. Okay then, what is book number 2?
Book number 2 is called The Psychology of Money. I think it's probably one of the most important books out there.
Yeah? Explain why.
So I love it because it's not really a true finance book. It's more about like a relationship advice book. But instead of a relationship with people, it's about your relationship with your finances and your money.
So it's less about the people and more about behavior.
Yeah, I think it highlights just how much power we actually have over how much wealth we can accumulate with just little changes to our mindset. And the uncomfortable truth, I suppose, is that you can have a great salary and you can have all this knowledge about the stock market, but if your mindset and your relationship with money isn't right, then it's actually really hard to accumulate wealth.
But on the flip side, that's actually quite encouraging because in a way, how you manage your emotions around money is sometimes more important than your actual financial knowledge, right?
Exactly, and it's the type of book that you find yourself thinking about in your day-to-day interactions with money, even though it's been ages since you've read it.
Okay, and then number 3, The Millionaire Next Door.
This one's a good one, I think, to read quite early on because it just completely changes your mindset about what rich people should look like and how they actually spend.
How so?
Well, you might see somebody, decked out in diamonds and expensive branded bags and think, oh, that person looks rich. But actually what this book highlights is that real wealth is actually really quiet.
Mm-hmm. It's invisible, almost.
Yeah, like the person next door to you, they might drive an old car. They haven't upgraded their house in ages. They don't go on multiple...
Yeah, that's what they say, isn't it? If you see someone driving like a brand new Mercedes, they're probably...
You think that's
up
rich?
to their eyeballs in debt, and the guy with like a paid off banger next door. What was that old car my friends used to have? A Nissan Sunny, I think it was. Back in the day, I don't know if anyone had a car in finance, but that was a banger. So when I think of a banger, the Nissan Sunny, check it out.
Yeah, so I mean, you see someone with a banger and you think that they're not rich, but actually they might be the wealthiest person on your street.
And getting into these habits, I think, is really important as well, because if you get into it before you get wealthy, then these habits never go away, no matter how much money you accumulate.
Yeah, and these habits are the reason that they got there, because looking rich and being rich are entirely separate things. And once you read this book, you can't unsee this distinction.
Okay, so Rich Dad, Poor Dad is next. And I know this one's had a fair amount of criticism.
But hear me out. There are actually a lot of valuable ideas in Rich Dad, Poor Dad that would be a real shame to miss out on and not read about just because there's been a lot of criticism.
So what's the core message or idea of it then?
I think the core idea really is that instead of working for money, you should definitely make your money work for you. It's that subtle shift away from just being an employee, that mindset of being an employee, to owning your own business and your own assets, so investing.
Yeah. And that's a completely different way to see the world. Just completely changes your outset on everything.
Completely. And it also breaks down the differences between assets and liabilities, which is something that I think most of us don't really think about. But once you can identify what in your life is an asset and what's a liability, it's a game changer.
It's simple, but people genuinely don't get this, do they?
No. Like a car. We think, oh, we've got a new car, it's an asset, but it really isn't.
And the last one, The Little Book of Common Sense Investing, again written by John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard.
Yeah, and I think this one ties back really well to the first book we mentioned. This one is written obviously by the founder himself, so if anyone has the authority to be writing about index funds, it would be him.
So what would you say? It's basically a deeper dive into the first book that we mentioned?
Yeah, pretty much. He talks about the benefits of index fund investing, and he's basically made these funds so accessible and affordable for just ordinary people to slowly build wealth.
You mentioned that he made them. I don't think we've mentioned that in the video so far, but actually John Bogle is the first person to ever create an ETF, right? Or an index fund.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why he called it back in the day, but yeah.
Yeah. To essentially just track the market and just have that large variety of diversification in your portfolio and just minimize the risk of all your money being put into one stock and that company going bust.
It's mad, isn't it? Because especially retail investors nowadays, we rely on ETFs so much, and we actually rely on them being able to purchase fractional shares of these ETFs as well. Whereas back in the day when these were created, you weren't able to buy fractional shares back then. You had to have enough money to buy whole shares. So nowadays it's even more accessible. But yeah, he built the foundations, and thank God he did. Okay, so where would you suggest someone starts with these books if they've never read any of them?
I think probably The Psychology of Money is a really good one to start with, because you got to start with your own mindset with money. That just completely changes your relationship with it.
And if they already have some sort of basic understanding of finance?
Then they're probably ready to start investing in actual funds.
The John Bogle books, I'd say so.
The Little Book of Common Sense Investing.
And that's my favourite on the list. And as ever, we'll be leaving links to all of these books down below, so if you want to check them out, go ahead. Put a like on this video, and thanks for watching.
Listening.